Okay, we're going to call to order the Dartmouth Conservation Commission meeting. This is for Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. We're conducting this meeting remotely as a result of Governor Healy extending the hybrid remote option, allowing the municipalities to conduct these meetings in a remote fashion. She did that on March 28, 2025, and the extension goes through June 30, 2027. We do have a raise your hand feature, and there's also a just wave at us kind of feature, and we'll recognize and allow that individual to speak. Otherwise, I'd ask that folks please keep their microphones muted until they're ready to speak. That way we don't get the ambient noise, etc. This meeting was duly posted in Town of Dartmouth and on the website, so it is being conducted in accordance with both Massachusetts and Town of Dartmouth laws and regulations. That being said, we have a quorum tonight. And we're going to move on to our administrative items, of which there are 3. And I see that Nat just came on. So we actually have a full quorum. Our first administrative item is to approve the minutes of April 22, 2025. May a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. We'll have a roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The second administrative item is to approve the field trip reports of May 13, 2025. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our third and final administrative item is to receive both the open meeting minutes and the minutes of the executive session for May 13, 2025. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We have quite a few field trip reports. The first one is a request for determination of applicability, RDA 25-5, from Trinity Solar to construct a ground-mounted solar array with a total of 32 panels on an existing tennis court within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The regulations involved are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, 10.55, and Section 360-2B of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 126, lot 148. It's otherwise known as number 2, Cranberry Lane. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Yes, this is a ground-mounted solar array that is being proposed to be placed in a pre-existing disturbed area of the buffer zone and land subject to coastal storm flowage. It is in fact an abandoned tennis court. There will be no grade changes. And having reviewed the site, reviewed the pad to which these panels are going to be on, staff recommends to the commission a -2 determination with the appropriate erosion and control condition.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a -2 determination with standard erosion control conditions on this request, which is RDA 25-5.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Oh, Richard, I almost forgot you.
That's all right. Yes.
My vote is yes as well. That passes unanimously. Our second field trip report is a request for a request for determination of applicability, RDA 25-6, on the request for determination of applicability from the town of Dartmouth to provide upgrades and improvements to Ellswick Street and Route 6 pump stations within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland, Ellswick Street, and within the riverfront area, the 100-foot buffer zone to an inland bank state road. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, 10.58, and Section 360-2B of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described by coordinates 41.641029 degrees north, 71.014158 degrees west, and 41.639860 degrees north, and then 70.023440 degrees west, respectively. Mark, what is the recommendation of staff on this request?
These are existing functional municipal infrastructure features. One at Ellswick Street, one at State Road. Neither are that far apart from each other. There is no expansion of the facilities. There's no expansion of the infrastructure, just replacement and upgrades. And because of that, staff is recommending a -2 and a -3 determination. The reason for the -2 is that the sites, one site falls within the riverfront area. Both sites fall within buffer zone.
Which one falls within the riverfront? We should just probably specify that in the
State
vote.
Road.
State?
Yep.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to issue a -2 determination for the state road site and a -2 and and a -3 determination for the state road site and the Ellswick site on the application before us.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Our third field trip reports a request for a certificate of compliance. It's DEP file 15-2591. Excuse me. RCC 25-7 is from Joe Verissimo, care of Stephen Giosa, who constructed a single-family dwelling with associated grading and utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to a salt marsh, in the regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.32, and section 360-2B of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 127, lot 57-2. It's otherwise known as 120 Wilson Street. And what is the recommendation of staff on this request?
Staff recommends a complete COC on this project.
Does any commissioner have any question? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance on file DEP 15-2591.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on now to the fourth field trip report. It's a request for a certificate of compliance, DEP file 15-2195, RCC 25-6. It's from Emma Minkatowicz to construct a single-family dwelling and driveway with associated grading and utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, and Section 360-2B of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 98, lot 23-3. It's otherwise known as 7 Stonebridge Lane. Mark, what is staff's recommendation for this request?
This too, we're recommending a complete certificate of compliance.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-2195.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're on now to the fifth field trip report, which is also a request for a certificate of compliance. And this one is DEP file 15-1055 RCC 25-8. It's from Katie Mahoney, care of Leonard Potter, to construct a single-family home and nominal accessory site development in the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, and Section 360-2B of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 79, lot 48. It's otherwise known as 26 Southwind Way. Mark, staff's recommendation on this request, please.
This too, we're recommending a complete certificate of compliance.
Thank you very much. Does any commissioner have any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion for an issuance of a complete certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-1055.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. We'll have a roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. That concludes our field trip reports. We're now moving on to our public hearings. The first public hearing is continued public hearing DEP file 15-2748 AOOC 25-3. It's on the request to amend an order of conditions from the Carney Family Irrevocable Trust of 1998 to construct a pool and updated terrace area adjacent to the dwelling. It's within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicable regulations of 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, and Section 360-2B of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. It's on land described as map 113, lot 20-1. It's otherwise known as 2 Rockland Farm. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. I believe we had a request from the applicant to continue this. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, if I could explain, if you recall 2 weeks ago, we had quite a discussion with the applicant and his project team regarding the size of the pool and the terrace as it extends into the velocity zone, land subject to coastal storm flowage under the regulations and the bylaw. And it was agreed that they would continue until tonight and present us with potentially a revised concept plan of the design. That did occur, but it occurred on Friday. They requested a meeting. They met with staff in our office and they showed us two alternatives. The first alternative was the original alternative that we looked at. The second was a reduced alternative. In both alternatives, they did not rotate the pool 90 degrees. However, they did reduce the footprint such that the orientation of the pool was less of an issue to me in the revised version than it was in the original version. But since they missed the deadline to get you the plans, I suggested that they request a continuance until June 10th, in which we will get a complete revised plan, final plan, out to you in due time for your review. So the request via email, and I did send that to the commissioners, is to continue this to the June 10th meeting.
Does any commissioner have any questions? Not seeing any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard? I don't.
Matter, but we're at the town hall, the first order of business, so please excuse us. We didn't know how to get on it, so when you get a chance, we're here.
Oh, we already took care of it. You're here with the solar?
Yes, sir. Like I said, can you speak? I'm in the 103, the office, the meeting house here in the town hall. I didn't realize that it was optional. I thought it was optional. I came in person and I'm here with the homeowners from.
We've issued a -2 determination with the standard erosion control conditions. So that should be fairly satisfactory, I would think.
Okay, no, I'm not familiar with I'm sorry for interrupting once again. I'm so excited that I got you on the phone because I do not know how to get on a Zoom meeting, but now I do, I guess. So,
Well, that's one way to do it. Yeah, I guess the other way is we have a link, but if you don't have the agenda in a computer, you can't really get on it. But that we didn't deny it. We granted a -2 determination with standard erosion control conditions. And if you needed some information on what those are, they should be available, but
yes.
actually a good thing. So
Okay, so
it was a good thing.
I appreciate you responding to us, and I'm not on a timely basis here. So a -2, the word negative doesn't sound good to us, but
Well, negative is a positive when you're looking for a determination. A positive means you got to come back and file a notice of intent so you can get an order of conditions. So when you go in for determination of applicability, you want a negative.
okay, so that's
Like going into your doctor and you get a negative for any signs of cancer, you're happy, right? So it's the same thing.
I appreciate, yes, the schooling. So should we just have some response you're going to put into the portal? And Eduardo, I met him once a few months ago. So Eduardo, you're all set with the information the office?
Eduardo's not here. I'm the environmental affairs coordinator. I will put the determination on the portal. I will email you when it's there, and then you can do what you need to do with it.
Okay, so it's all smooth going forward and you got it handled.
Yes, you did a great job.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you both. Excuse my, appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, so we were at the point where we were going to be voting on the continuance for the requested continuance for our DEP file 15-2748 at the request of the applicant as described by Mr. Garrett until Tuesday, June 10, 2025. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving now on to our second public hearing. It's a continued public hearing, DEP file 15-2388 AOOC 25-5. It's on the request to amend an order of conditions from Joseph Raposa to construct a new single-family home and garage instead of the previously approved duplex residential unit home with garage. This is within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, and section 360-2B of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. This is on land described as map 137, lot 136. It's located on Milton Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. There's a preliminary matter, Mark. Do you want to bring up the issue on this?
Yes, they were, the applicant and the project team were to put together some plan revisions, basically notes and things recommended by DPW. We have a policy of trying to work with as few plan revisions as possible, especially when we're creating plans of record. So it was agreed that they would get those minor revisions, none of which were germane to conservation issues, except that we want a consistent plan of record moving forward with everybody's comments included where possible. Peter Cruz tried to get those in on time on Thursday to meet our Thursday 3 p.m. deadline. Peter contacted me and said he was having trouble due to the weather with his Wi-Fi. That was the day of the torrential rains, and I think a few people had some problems. So I broached the subject with Chairman Keogh to see if he had an issue with Peter coming on and pleading his case, and we both agreed that it was probably a good idea and that it was a reasonable miss. And since the comments are not changing the plan, only adding some notes, changing the structure of the plans or the structure of the project as proposed, we felt that we could move forward and close the hearing today or this evening. Having said that, I believe Peter's here.
He is, and I just wanted to find out if any commissioner thinks that that's an incorrect way to handle it. I'd like to hear it now before they start the presentation. And I'll just tell you my reasoning on it was that this isn't a situation where the plan wasn't ready until after the deadline or somebody was asleep at the switch. So nature intervened, and this is the first time we've ever had this kind of a request because of that. Usually it's because they just didn't get around to filing it on time because it wasn't ready. And as Mark said, the changes were really not specifically Conservation Commission changes. So that part of the plan hadn't been altered. So I thought it was a reasonable request and one for which an exception to our rule, which is not a written regulation in the town. It's just a rule of Conservation Commission. So we know we've had the plan in the office for a sufficient length of time for anyone interested to look at it. But anyway, long way of saying, I just want to know if anyone thinks that's the wrong way to go. All right, I don't see anybody saying that, so I guess the floor is yours, Peter.
Oh, thank you, Chair and board members. I did learn a lesson on this one. Next time I will bring in a hard copy, Mark, and goals. So let me share my screen. I know I presented it a couple of weeks ago. Just requesting to share. Can you just let me know if you see my screen?
I see it now.
Okay, thank you. And all right. So 2 weeks ago, we presented this to the board again. There is absolutely no change from the plan. I highlighted where the duplex would be. Again, this was filed back in, actually, the extension was filed with the town back in November 1st of 2023 for the extension of the permit for the duplex that was originally going to be constructed on site. The original plan was done by Bousset and Associates. And the reduction with going with a single family home here versus a duplex was that it would only generate about 3,500 square feet of impervious area, which was a reduction of about 28% of the original plan. And it also shifts the home away from the resource and the floodway and the Buttonwood Brook here. We are not doing any work out in the roadway. All the utility stubs are at the property line. I think Mr. Reposer felt that the single family home was a better fit for the neighborhood versus a duplex. So that was why the change in moving it back to a single family home versus a duplex. I open it up to the board or the chair if you have any comments or questions on the project.
Thank you, Peter. Mark, I would certainly like to hear staff's comments, but as I remember from the previous meeting, I think aside from those changes, the staff was ready to recommend this for
Yes.
approval.
Yes, you are correct. We were prepared to issue a standard amended order of conditions as per the plan, the now revised plan, new residential home site plan as dated May 21st, 2025.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience this evening that wants to be heard on this application? Again, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve our standard amended order of conditions based on the revised plan dated May 21st, 2025.
I'll move. Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Number 3, and our final public hearing is on DEP file 15-2788, NOI 25-21. It's on the notice of intent from HWHL Wyoming Holdings LLC to manage 35,000 square feet of invasive non-native plant species in addition to native plantings within a bordering vegetated wetland and its 100-foot buffer zone and the associated 100-foot buffer zones to a coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicable regs are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, 10.30, 10.55, and Section 360-2B of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. The land is described as map 113, lots 28 and 29. It's otherwise known as 23 High Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
The move. Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
I must recuse myself.
Okay, Richard Mallon has recused himself, so note in the record. Nat,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And do we have someone here this evening that wants to speak on behalf of the applicant or the applicant?
Hi there. My name is Matt Lautenberger. I'm a project manager with Wilkinson Ecological Design. We are the ecological restoration firm helping the client, Mr. Dobson, in this project. Um, with uh, with that said, just to give you a quick, brief introduction to us. It's our first time working in Dartmouth, but we've been working mostly on the Cape for the last for over 10 years now, doing very similar projects. Phragmites removal and treatment in particular is something we have a lot of experience in. I'll go ahead and go over the project now, and then I have some precedent photos from our other successful projects after that I can show as well.
Okay.
So I understand this is a property that you guys have seen relatively recently, as Mr. Dobson is having a house built. But this project is a ecological restoration limited NOI, specifically focused on improving the conditions in the bordering wetland and the coastal woodland that are on the property. The purpose of these activities outlined in our management is to increase biodiversity and provide wildlife habitat. To give you an idea of the conditions as they are now, there's an upland portion of the delineated wetland that is adjacent to the disturbed area where, the lawn and mowing and all of that have been. The area there is somewhat heavily invaded. Species on the property are broadleaf dock, yellow nutsedge, butterfly bush, porcelain berry, and Asiatic bittersweet. Native species include goldenrod, sensitive fern, and cinnamon fern. Moving into the coastal wetland from there, you have a very beautiful coastal woodland where there's sensitive fern and cinnamon fern, as well as mature native species of tupelo, American holly, and white oak. Beyond that, closer to the shoreline, there is a Phragmites dominated section of the property that we are proposing to go in and remove the Phragmites. It's worth noting that on the adjacent property, that same stand of Phragmites across the property line is already being managed. So this would just bring the rest of the stand under control. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Okay. So this is our existing conditions. As you can see, this area here, with the checkered hatching is the area where there are some invasive species that are worth getting in there now and controlling. There are also a number of mitigation trees which will remain, and our controlling of the invasives will actually give them a better chance to grow to maturity. Beyond that, we have a very well established coastal woodland that we would be proposing to go in early detection and removal of invasive species within the woodland. Mostly here, we're focused on bittersweet, although there are a couple of other invasive species that have gotten in there. And then beyond that, there is this chunk of Phragmites here, where we would be proposing to mow and wipe the Phragmites, which is a method of herbicide control that doesn't involve spraying. So there's not as much danger of that the glyphosate hitting non-target species there. Below this on the site, you can see we have a extensive planting plan for the area where the invasive species are thicker. We'd be going in and doing 6 arrowwood, 10 sweet pepper bush, 6 winterberry, and then a handful of swamp rose mallow. We would also be putting down our wet meadow seed mix, all of the species in that mix are listed on the plan here. And then just to give you an idea of our history with similar projects, this is a project that started back in 2015. We do the initial mow and allow the Phragmites to grow back a little bit so that it's easier to target. We hit that with glyphosate, and then by that second year, very quickly, you see the native species, which will already be present in the seed bank, starting to return. Now that the glyphosate is now that the Phragmites is no longer competing with it. And then pretty quickly, by the second year and then the third year, you see a very robust native wetland species
Is
return.
there supposed to be some pictures you're showing
Matt,
us?
yeah, we're not
We're
seeing
only
any
seeing the
photographs.
plan.
Oh, okay.
Or at least I'm only seeing the plan. Maybe.
No,
I must
it was
have,
just a plan.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
So here's that first picture where you can see
Yeah.
we've mowed the Phragmites and it's starting to grow back. This is the next spring where the natives are starting to come back in. And then by that second summer, you're getting really robust native species regrowing. So that would be our plan for this wetland as well. Where the Phragmites is, we won't be planning to plant anything. We would just be encouraging the already existing seed bank to return. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the project.
Thank you. Mark, I'd like to hear staff's comments on this project.
Yeah, I met Matt and some of his colleagues out on site. I think Eduardo was with me also. At least a month and a half ago, I think. We walked the area, and what they're proposing seems reasonable. Matt did mention there were some trees, restoration trees. If the commission will recall, we did have an enforcement action on this property for some previous work, and I think Mr. Dodson took heed and has brought in Wilkinson, and I think that was a very good step in the right direction. The enforcement plans are doing okay. Certainly, the removal of any opportunistic nuisance non-native species would assist in their more robust growth. So I agree with Matt on that. 3 phases here. The area closest to the house, the woodland, and then the Phragmites. I would say a more complicated ecological restoration than we're used to seeing, but certainly one that can work if done appropriately. And I think in talking with Matt and his team, I think they've got a good handle on this. I'm looking forward to working with them for the first time, to see what exactly we can get out of this. Having said that, staff is prepared to issue a standard order, or is prepared to recommend the commission issuing a standard order of conditions with modified restoration conditions, and I will read those modified conditions to you in a moment, in accordance with the restoration plan dated May 13th, 2025. In those modified restoration conditions, that's typically our condition 41, which I will read. Where project site areas are designated for resource replacement, replication, or restoration, whether by approved project impact, violation, or as a result of enforcement order, all work shall conform with the following protocols. A, these areas shall also be secured with properly staked and entrenched hay bales or wattles and silt fence and regrading to natural contours prior to planting. All unstable bare ground shall be seeded with standard wetland or erosion control seed mix as per the conditions. planted at the recommended densities. B, aside from the restoration work authorized under this order, no additional activities of any type shall occur within 25 feet of the delineated wetland line of record established under this order, unless authorized in the future by the commission or an agent. C, the application of any herbicide must be implemented by a licensed certified herbicidal applicator. D, all planting and restoration work will be accomplished with the minimal amount of low pressure mechanized equipment and only when necessary. This to include the removal of vegetative debris. E, all vegetative management practices shall adhere to the invasive plant management protocols as presented in Wilkinson, May 13th, 2025, as presented in the notice of intent application. Any deviation from those protocols shall need approval from the Conservation Commission or staff. F, when using seed mixes of any type or source, the Conservation Commission shall require all sowing of seed to be at the specified density and aerial coverage. G, where plantings are proposed, the Conservation Commission shall require the minimum woody plant specifications to include all individual tree specimens as proposed with trunk DBH of no less than 1 inch, if applicable, and all shrub sizes of no less than 3 to 5 gallon pots or balls as proposed, if applicable, as opposed to any size specifications presented on the record documents. H, monitoring shall be done and reported to the conservation staff following each growing season until 75% wetland vegetative cover has been achieved or throughout the complete term of this order. I, all plantings that fail to survive through the first full growing season or any reason shall be replaced by the applicant or their successors or assigns. So those are the recommended modifications to our restoration conditions as part of our standard conditions. So that is our recommendation.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience this evening that wants to be heard on this matter? I don't see anybody. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Richard?
Recuse.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, right, you did. I apologize. Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, commissioners, at this juncture, based on the application, the presentation, and staff's recommendation, I would, oh, did we get the date of the plan?
Yes, May 13th, 2025.
Yes, we did. Okay. Entertain a motion for the issuance of a standard order of conditions with our modified condition number 41 as articulated by Mr. Garrett as A through I. It's on the plan that was a restoration plan dated May 13, 2025.
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That passes unanimously with Mr. Mallon recusing himself. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes our public hearings, and we're moving now on to items for discussion. So the first item for discussion was the filing fee and policy adjustments. Mark, you sent those out last week. I didn't have it. I thought those looked good. I thought those were in keeping with our the tenor of our discussion from the previous meeting. Any commissioner have any questions?
No, I agree.
Can I have an official vote on that?
Yeah, I was going to get to that. I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
everybody. So I would now recommend that we would have a vote to adopt the filing fees and policy adjustments as articulated in the email circulated by Mr. Garrett to the commissioners last week.
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. We'll do a roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Before we move on, just so you know, I have to present this to the select board for their approval before they are finalized. I'm going to try to get on a June meeting so that this can occur at the turn of the fiscal year and be effective July 1st of this year.
Thank you, Mark. So our next item is the proposed meeting schedules beginning July 1st to January 2026. Mark had taken the lead or on this and circulated that. Does anyone have any questions? I realize some folks may have one or more meetings they can't make, and that happens all the time.
No rejections from me. Looks good.
Not for me either.
None from me.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting schedule for the balance of 2025 that begins July 1st through January 2026 as per the email circulated by Mr. Garrett last week to the commissioners.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. We'll have a roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We have an ongoing vacancy in the commission, obviously. The Board of Selectmen denied appointment of Jay Tallerman for their own reasons. And so we still have a vacancy. As you may recall, we had, according to the select board, we had 4 other applicants, but in reality, we had 3 because one of the 4 is our own James, who was appointed commissioner. So we had 3. And of the 3, 2 had put us down, the Conservation Commission, that is, as having 0 interest in being appointed. So we had 1. And I think we've all seen this gentleman's CV. I guess at this juncture, I'm a little dismayed at the way it was handled previously. Frankly, I don't think the process is very good. But and I'm not really a big fan of keep on coming back with more names until we finally pick somebody that the select board likes. But I guess that's the process we use in the town of Dartmouth, so we don't have a lot of choice. I would, unless anyone has any objection, I would say that we should probably notify the select board that since they've declined to appoint our first preference, Jay Tallerman, we're requesting that they appoint the second preference. And Mark, I forgot his name, so I apologize.
Don Mursky.
Yeah. So I think that's the way we should probably approach it. Otherwise, we'll probably never fill the position.
He's the forester, right? The former
Yeah, he is.
forester.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's not qualified.
No,
This is not a situation where I feel that this gentleman is unqualified or I have any animus towards him. As you can tell, my frustration is in the process. And truly, it is the select board's purview as to who they appoint to any of the appointed boards or commissions. Okay. So that part of it, I get. They don't even need our recommendation. They can just appoint without us. But historically, this commission has recommended to the select board a candidate or candidates, and the select board has taken that recommendation and appointed. So this episode was the first time they didn't. And it just strikes me as sort of, well, we're superfluous here, I can't even say it. I'm so kind of upset about it, but it's like our recommendation was really meaningless. So I feel like we're just going through the motions. That's me. Okay. I'm not speaking on behalf of the entire commission, but if you want our recommendation, do what you want with it. If you want to pick somebody else, pick them.
Has the new individual in question been interviewed?
No, that individual has not been interviewed. That's a good point. Maybe I jumped the gun, and maybe I probably did. So I suspect what we need to do is decide if we should interview him. Okay, so you're absolutely right, Liz. That's always been something we've done. But again, this goes to my frustration, which is then what's the point of interviewing if our recommendation doesn't mean anything?
I can sympathize with that, but I think we should still remain consistent in our own processes with how we evaluate candidates, regardless of the influence of the select board.
You're right. You've got a more rational outlook on this than I do. So I appreciate the fact that we've got the voice of reason over there. And I think you're absolutely correct. So with that, I think it's appropriate then we extend an invitation to this prospective applicant for an interview, just as we've done in the past with every other person who's expressed an interest and in whom we have an interest.
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
Mark, do you want to see what's out there with him? And
I will send 3 dates to you guys. I'll need to hear back from you, and then I will, whatever dates are convenient for you, if all 3 are, I will pass them along to Dawn and we'll go from there.
that sounds like it's a plan. By the way, if any commissioner's term is expiring, please, you should have gotten a letter from the select board asking whether you want to continue to serve or you want to stop serving. I know my term would have expired, so I had my letter in and I double checked to be sure it was in. But I don't know if anyone else was in the same boat. You should get a letter anytime your commission is about to expire, you should get a letter from the select board. Just an FYI. All right. So, Mark, that leads us with the Macusco CR request 101 Allen's Neck Road. And I don't know if you want to describe to the commissioners.
Well, what I'm
this-
going to do is I will give a very brief overview. We have Mr. Masuko and
I'm sorry, I
Matt
missed-
Ireland from Natural Heritage. They can speak more to what really happened because I have not been involved in the back and forth. I've only gotten it, second hand, and probably won't do it justice. Simply put, this is a site down on the corner where Allen's Neck Road does the 90-degree across from Round the Bend Farm. There was a violation of rare and endangered species on the site. There was also a minor violation, the buffer zone that was handled and has been dismissed, so that's not an issue. The address is 101 Allen's Neck Road. Mr. Masuko and the state have been engaged in litigation. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that has gone up to the Attorney General's office. And what we're faced with what they're faced with right now is a solution by establishing a conservation restriction on 6 plus or minus acres of the eastern portion of the parcel. And as I understand it, they approached Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust some time ago. They were engaged in discussion. DNRT since decided to not proceed with accepting the CR. So Mr. Masuko has approached the commission through me, and I have sent you the plan, the draft, a draft. Not sure it's the latest draft, but it's the draft that I got of the CR. And with that, I would turn it over to either Dr. Masuko or Mr. Ireland to go further in what they're seeking.
Thank you, Mark. I think that sums it up really perfectly. We've reached a settlement on this issue and have come up with a mutually agreed upon conservation restriction. And I really didn't know anything about the process, but now I need to find a home for the CR. So initially, DNRT seemed responsive to it, and then they decided. I got several reasons I didn't understand, but for whatever reason, they decided not to go ahead with it. I've since reapproached them and tried to add some money to the solution. They are ostensibly reconsidering, but I didn't really get a positive feeling from them. So I still need to find a home for this CR, not really understanding what my options were. It had been suggested I might try the commission itself, and here I am.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Ireland, do you want to speak?
Yeah, thanks. And I'll just note that Mike O'Neill is also here. Mike O'Neill is the attorney for Dr. Masuko. I'm Matt Ireland. I'm actually with the Mass AG's office. So I've been involved with this case since the beginning. Jesse Leddick from the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program of the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make this meeting today, but I've been conferring with him. So I think that's correct. I do think one other twist in terms of I'm not quite sure, as Mark Garrett mentioned, which draft of the CR you received. I actually had a conversation earlier with Attorney O'Neill about that. We would just, I would need to make sure that the draft you guys are, looking at is the most current draft. But again, we have this settlement. This has gone on for a long time. There's a lot of litigation on this. The Commonwealth is very interested in this CR being a very important part of the settlement. The settlement is before the court. The court actually, in a sense, ordered a settlement conference. So this was really the settlement that we came up with was very much, the court was very much involved with this. The court really directed this settlement. And so we're just waiting to wrap up this one component, which is getting the CR granted to hopefully the Concom. So that's why we're here. And Mike, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or Dr. Masuko wants to add anything else. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but that was just a quick overview.
Well, it was a good overview. Okay.
If I could respond to Mr. Ireland, the copy that I'm holding is dated February 2025.
Okay.
And it's a document with, comments and inserts. There are several blanks that have not been filled in on this, so this is certainly not a final document.
Okay.
In my, in my assessment, clearly.
Well,
Attorney O'Neill, your microphone is muted, so there you go.
Yes, this is Mike O'Neill. I'm the lawyer for Dr. Masuko. And yes, we have reached a settlement. So Dr. Masuko and the Commonwealth are very much in league, very much on this, speaking from the same page and in full agreement on this conservation restriction. And we've been working cooperatively to get it done and going back and forth to make sure that everything is correct. And so we are in complete agreement. And so I just want you to know that this is a good result for everything. This puts over 6+ acres into the conservation restriction, which protects the property as the Commonwealth requests.
Thank you. That being said, now we've heard from the folks that want to give the CR. Mark, does staff have comments they'd like the commissioners to consider?
Yeah, we have a few. First of all, from a conceptual level, I see the value in this. I think that the settlement agreed upon is probably the best resolution that could come of this. Uh, that's the good part. The bad part is that these types of conservation restrictions, when assigned to land steward or when accepted by land stewarding organizations like DNRT or the Buzzards Bay Coalition or the trustees of the reservation or Mass Audubon, whomever, they are much better served in addressing the required needs of the conservation restriction. When you hold a conservation restriction, you are required to monitor the land annually. You are required to engineer the resolution of any problems out there, any impacts, any inconsistencies with the CR. And that's the part that troubles me. Not in theory, but in practicality. Towns, municipalities are not good agents of CRs, especially large towns. Smaller towns like Lincoln or Concord and Abington, they can handle it because they do not have the workload and they have enough staff to address their workload. In a town like Dartmouth, we spend so much time on applications and so much time on enforcement, we barely get to monitor the very land that we steward and have accepted over the years. And that becomes a problem, an operational problem for me and my staff. There are only two of us. And I shared these comments with Jesse Leddick, and I think I shared these with Dr. Masuko. While I think this is a good green space patch in an area of town which has a fair amount of protected land, and there's a vast amount of linkage between various sites in that little corner of the world, I don't know how we fit it in. The second issue is we have a conservation restriction which has been negotiated between the parties, the state and Dr. Masuko and his team. I would never recommend accepting a CR until our own town council gets a review of it to make sure that it meets the standards of the town of Dartmouth, which may vary from some of the other parties involved. So those are my initial comments on this. I'm really at a point of uncertainty. I would like to ask a question. I know that DNRT was approached, and if I heard you right, Dr. Masuko, they are reconsidering possibly.
So the DNRT process is twofold. There appears to be some sort of informal assessment by the LAC, their Land Acquisition Commission, as to whether or not a certain project or proposal is viable. And then it gets kicked up to the board for an official meeting and look at least as I understand it, as my dealings with the DNRT have occurred. So initially, this has been on the board agenda actually for over a month, but apparently they didn't meet in May. And so it's been on their June agenda for a couple of months. But I got about a month ago, I was told by the representative that the LAC was going to make a negative recommendation for accepting the CR. It was still on the agenda, but it was unlikely that the board was going to consider it. So then after talking with my attorney and having a hearing downtown at the district court in front of the judge, it seemed to me that I should go back to the DNRT and try to offer them an inducement, i.e. money, to get them to reconsider. I passed that back to the representative of the DNRT. He said he would put it in front of the LAC one more time so they could reconsider it prior to its agenda item in June. I haven't heard back from the DNRT.
Have you?
Did I muddy that up, or is that clear?
No, I
Somewhat.
think you answered the question for me. Second question, have you approached other land trusts and land stewardship organizations such as Buzzards Bay Coalition or the trustees or Mass Audubon?
I have not, no, and pending tonight's hearing and what I thought would be a rather, I expected I would have heard from the LAC, the NRT by now, and I hadn't. Pending those responses, I was going to move on to any place else I could think that might accept this CR. And I do appreciate you getting me on the agenda tonight. I know it was a little bit of a hassle, and we had a lot of last minute back and forth and things, and I appreciate your time tonight, really do.
Well, Doctor,
And your input.
we really feel, I mean, I know myself that area very well, and as Mark said, it's a prime area for protection, and it does link in with other protected sites. But you know, I know that Mark and Eduardo, and before Eduardo, we had a few others, Jen in particular, most recently. We're stretched pretty thin, and the stewardship component is the part that I take pretty seriously, because if we agreed to take on a CR, we have to agree that and know we can do the stewardship component. And I think, unfortunately, from my experience in the town, and I've been doing this now for pretty near 20 years, we fall flat on our face when it comes to being stewards. Okay, there just isn't enough personnel to do the job in the town. And we have properties that, quite frankly, have become dump sites as a result of the fact that it's not properly stewardshiped, if that's even a term. And I'm really concerned about that, because I think the area there, unlike some of the sites the town has, which were given to us, and I use that term, gifted to us with quotation marks, by developers who didn't want to pay taxes on it and they couldn't build on it. So we got properties that don't connect up to anything. This is perfectly connected to a lot of important properties that we already have protection over. So I'd love to try and help you folks. And I think, as Mark said, Coalition for Buzzards Bay, this might be right up their alley, because they've got people who are on their staff. That's all they do, is the stewardship.
Yeah, I appreciate that recommendation, actually. And I have done some work with Buzzards Bay, and this particular project didn't come up, but we were working on some others, and I was actually trying to buy 2 parcels next to me. And what I kept hearing from them was, well, if it's not on the waterfront, then we're really not interested. But I think that perhaps the linkage issue might cause them to be interested, and I should probably approach them right away.
I think that would be a very good idea. I mean, I know we have not that far away, town of Dartmouth, and I'm going to use the term partnered, but partnered with not only a coalition, but trustees. That's the Martha Farm. And I think federal government got involved in that one too, because there's an agricultural component to it. But the point is, you know, if they were willing to do the stewardship part of it or help us, and I guess why not them just take the whole thing on?
Sure.
But if they were willing to do that, it'd make it much more enticing for us, because not that we don't think this is valuable. I do, for sure, think it's valuable. And I appreciate the careful solution that was crafted by the attorneys involved, and through your permission, Doctor, to do this. But I also don't want to end up falling flat on our face again with the stewardship component. It's like, I don't want to overpromise what we can do, knowing that we can't do it presently. I don't see anything in the horizon with the town's budget that's going to increase the staffing of the Conservation Commission such that we'll be able to properly steward this property. And that's me. And I'm saying it with kind of like a lump in my throat because I'd love to be able to preserve this land.
Well, no, I appreciate that. This land will be preserved. There's no question about that. I just have to find the right home. And I appreciate all of the suggestions I've received along the way because it's a foreign area to me. So actually not so foreign anymore, I have to say. I'm sure that this will find the proper landing spot, no question.
If I
Thank you.
could suggest, if you reach out to these other groups, I think my experience tells me that these relationships are evolving. CR, accepting of CR, land ownership and the like. And what I think is happening is there is some level of hybridization. The chairman mentioned Ocean View Farms or the Martha Farm. There are 3 parties involved in that particular site. And the division of labor, there's a division of labor. It's not all on one part, on one group. So, you know, we work with DNRT in partnership. We work with BBC in partnership. And I think we work with the trustees on 1 or 2, if I recall correctly. So if you can engage them, you know, there might be a possibility where we could, as the chair said, team in some way, and we could handle the administrative side if somebody else is doing the actual legwork on the ground. You know, that can all be worked out, because I think that the thing that bothers me about all of this is that I go back to my first statement. This is a very, very reasonable and appropriate solution in my mind to a long-standing problem, and it would be a terrible thing to waste it all away because everybody's turning their back. I think there's got to be a way that we could hybrid this so that it can work for everybody, you know, the state, the Basucos, and the parties involved. But
No, I really appreciate
my
that.
suggestion would be to reach out to those other groups, and maybe we have a collective meeting at some point where, you know, 1 or 2 groups, myself, as you know, staff of the Conservation Commission, we sit down, because we are dealing with a very generic issue with CRs and town involvement, where many towns have not owned up to their stewardship requirements. You know, as the state provides monies for CRs to be procured and things like that, they have an expectation. And I think Governor Baker started this, but Governor Healy has made it quite a known entity that, you know, if we're funding CRs in your community better be backing their part of it. You know, Attorney Ireland might be able to enlighten more, but that's very much where this is going, because, you know, everybody will say these are great ideas, but it's how do you make them work given the constraints that are on the communities?
Fair enough. And I appreciate the offer, and certainly we'll try to make this as simple as possible. So, and again, that project is right across the road from me. I'm the linkage between those projects and the resources north of me. So I suspect that one way or another, I'll find a home for this with one of those groups, and we'll get on it right away. And really, really appreciate the time and the input.
Very welcome.
And
Thank
I'd
you.
just like to add my thanks to the discussion. It's very helpful. And the comment from the Commonwealth's perspective, from the AG's office, as well as, you know, I'm speaking for Natural Heritage and Division of Fisheries and Wildlife as well. We're going to continue to work with Attorney O'Neill to facilitate and you know, make this happen. And you know, I appreciate Dr. Masuko reaching out to Buzzards Bay and perhaps Mass Audubon, but it's possible that DNRT might be willing to, especially if some of the partnership kind of things you were just talking about, it's certainly a possibility that they may reconsider this. As I think Dr. Masuko and Attorney O'Neill understand, I did talk to the executive director of the DNRT not too long ago, and was aware of some of their concerns, but, you know, it didn't seem to be a complete shut door, which is kind of basically what Dr. Masuko was saying. So between them or others, I'm basically just offering my thanks and saying that the Commonwealth's going to be involved in finding a home and making this work out. And I definitely appreciate the Concom's time
You're
very much.
welcome. And it just dawned on me as you were speaking, it probably would be a good investiture of time to find out. I call it the Martha Farm. I know you said Seaview, but who's doing the stewardship? Because
Yeah.
if it's not Buzzards Bay, it's probably trustees. Okay. And if they're already there doing that stewardship, they might be one of the low hanging fruit, you know?
It's the perfect suggestion. Nope, and I really appreciate it. Yep. And I can find that out right away. I know exactly how to do that. Yep.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you
Keep
and
us
good
in,
luck.
keep us in the loop.
Yep.
Yes,
No,
please.
absolutely, Mark. I'll
I'm not
CC you
closing,
on everything.
I'm not suggesting
Yep.
we close the door here, but
No,
I think we gotta look at other options too.
No, I think the direction is clear, and I can't thank you enough for your help. And you know, I should say that going back 7 years, by the way. Thank you very much for everything. So, yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Now we go to less pleasant things. We have our enforcement issues. Mark, it's all yours.
Well, yeah, I need this like I need a hole in the head. Okay, so we had the executive session with Assistant Town Council, Cruz 2 weeks ago. And he was suggesting that we issue another enforcement order.
Whoa, time out. We shouldn't be discussing executive session in a public hearing.
Okay. I guess I need clarification from the commission. Do you want me to proceed with issuing a second enforcement order to 16 Nathan Drive?
Well, I would say so. I mean, just to be consistent, if we have an issue there, then there should be an issuance of an enforcement order.
Is that an order?
That's my opinion. There's other commissioners, if they have a contrary opinion, obviously the majority rules.
I agree.
Side with Mike.
So
Motion for Mr. Garrett to distribute a second enforcement order for 16 Nathan Lane.
a second on that?
Second.
For seconded motion. On the floor, roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Richard, if he's not in the picture. So Nat,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. That will pass you. We want to say yes, Richard.
Yes, thank
There
you.
you go. That passes unanimously. Okay.
Okay, second item is a report on the Country Club of New Bedford. I got a call from a select board member indicating that they were doing work on the country club in and around wetlands. In fact, they were. It was normal maintenance of the golf course, rebuilding greens, rebuilding fairways, all within jurisdiction. We sent a letter to the country club, and we were in response to the letter, we were asked to do a site visit with the director, Mark, his last name escapes me.
White.
Pardon?
Mark White.
Mark
White.
White, yes. Mark White. And Rich Rayome. We toured the entire golf course west of Slocum Road. Nothing was happening east of Slocum Road along Hathaway. And there was work being done in jurisdiction. It was all normal golf course maintenance. and it was decided and agreed upon by everybody that the golf course should come forward with an after the fact notice of intent outlining normal golf course maintenance that needs to be done periodically, especially on a golf course of, you know, that exclusivity. And we could decide, you know, how we want to handle it in terms of issuing an order of conditions. It's all very normal work. There were no impacts to the wetlands. There was one area that was, they took out some vegetation, and they dumped, there were a couple piles of sod. So I told them they had to restore that. They were in agreement. We talked about plantings. So we are expecting an after the fact notice of intent from the country club. If you hear or if you go by it and you see it, we are aware of it and we're working with them. So that's that. We got also we got a complaint, 716 Elm Street, which is right up pretty close to the intersection with Russell's Mills Road on the Ponegantset Bay side of Elm Street. Party was doing some probably normal landscaping, but they probably should have let us know what they were doing. Neighbor complained. We issued them a letter. The owner came in. We had a discussion. They are putting together a plan of what they're proposing to do, and we'll make a determination as to. They haven't done anything yet, really. So this is not an after the fact thing, but it is a complaint that we responded to. And so we're following up with that just in case that comes across your desk. The last one is I submitted to you a draft enforcement order for 341 356 Carroll Street. This is kind of interesting. Actually, the impact is only the cutting of trees in jurisdiction. However, what complicates it is that the party responsible for the tree cutting, and I say the party responsible because it was actually their subcontractors, a solar developer who was cutting trees down to maximize you know, solar exposure to the ground mounted panels, started cutting trees in jurisdiction on somebody else's property. So we've got two neighbors who are going at it, and we've got violations of certainly the bylaw and probably the Wetlands Protection Act. We have written a letter. We have been in negotiations with the parties that caused the problem. We told them what they wanted, what we wanted. They didn't respond. We put a cease and desist on them. They went ahead and this is probably out of jurisdiction. They, instead of doing ground mounted, they turned it into a roof mounted situation. However, the downed trees and the impacted ground conditions still exist. We indicated that, you know, just because you change the project doesn't mean that the problem goes away. We were basically told by the representative of the violator who was proposing to do the ground mounted solar that he felt that the engineering costs were unreasonable to do an after the fact notice of intent. I said, those are industry costs. You caused the problem. You've got to pay the price. We've heard nothing from them. I indicated to them that if we didn't hear in short order that we would issue an enforcement order. That is the draft enforcement order that you have in front of you, which is basically to go out, establish jurisdiction. They did hire somebody to flag the wetlands, so the wetlands have been flagged. But we've never been asked to look at those flags. And there needs to be a restoration program put in place to restore the problem on the abutting property, and also if there's any problem on the subject property. So that's what's before you. The enforcement order is to validate jurisdiction and to require a restoration of lost vegetation, and also the removal of the down vegetation, because the abutter basically hit the violator with a no trespass. So they can't clean the mess up, and rightly so. I understand his point of view. So we're kind of at loggerheads here. Now, just for the record, we have to issue, and both parties, well, the victim understands this. I'm not sure that the primary violator understands this, but we have to issue the enforcement order to both parties since the violations occurred on both properties. He's aware of that. It's my understanding he's taking his own civil action against the violator. So what I'm asking the commission is to authorize me to issue this enforcement order.
Does any commissioner have any question? I'll entertain a motion to authorize Mr. Garrett to issue the enforcement order, the draft of which was circulated, and this is regarding 341 and 356 Carroll Street.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Is that it?
That's all I got.
Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and Richard.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That is passed unanimously. Everyone, have a good evening. Thank you for attending.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Have a good evening.
That's all.
Yeah.